Hello, this is Professor Scott Norman from Pittsburgh State University, and we have another episode of Gorillas in the Midst of the Automotive Industry. Today, we are talking to Tim Engle, a 2009 graduate of PSU Automotive Technology. He's working at Davis Moore Chevrolet in Wichita as their service and parts director. Tim, welcome to our Gorillas in the Midst of the Automotive Industry.
Hello, Scott. Thanks for having me. I appreciate the invite.
Well, hey, you know what? When I was wanting to try to get somebody at the dealership level to interview, you were my first choice. I remember you being a student at PSU, and so you've been working at the dealership. I know for a long time since 2009. Plus, as a student, you were working there, so I knew you then, and so I wanted to kind of share your story, your success story of working your way up through the leadership as a technician so far. So I guess the first question I have for you is let's go back to high school. Tell me where you're from. Tell me what high school you went to. Did you have any automotive experience during high school?
Sure. I went to Fort Scott High School. They're just north of Pittsburgh. Really didn't have any automotive experience. I had all throughout my high school career, I had worked at the local hardware store, and I enjoyed tinkering on small engines, weed eaters, lawnmowers, stuff like that, and really kind of found my passion on trying to figure out what exactly makes things tick. And that's what kind of led me into searching out and going through the automotive program there in my high school, and then progressing on to Pittsburgh State eventually. So yeah, I had automotive class during my high school time there. As a senior, or as a junior and senior in high school, I actually competed in the Ford AAA troubleshooting contest.
Oh, cool. So was that up in Kansas City at the racetrack at that time?
Correct.
Yep, I was probably up there at about that time helping out with that. And so how'd you do?
I had a good time. I wasn't as smart as what I thought I was, but it was definitely an eye-opening experience, and basically taught me that what I thought I knew, I didn't know enough of, and led me on to pursue the career or the education path at Pittsburgh State.
Okay. And so while you were here at PSU, what was your option area?
So I have the 4-year degree in automotive technology with an emphasis in the service management side.
Okay, got it. Yeah, service management and marketing, we call that. So in that option, you take all your normal core automotive courses. You take your engines and your brakes and your steering and suspension, all that stuff. But then you also take 21 hours of what I'm going to call automotive business type classes. That way, you service management, sales management, learning how to operate a actual dealer business, we'll say.
Sure.
In fact, you get a minor in a business admin on that. So that's kind of cool. So while you were here at PSU, what type of work did you do? What type of summer internships did you complete?
Well, fortunately, throughout my college career, I actually worked at the local Chrysler dealership there in Pittsburgh. So there was no better hands-on at that point in time than working at the dealer. So during the time frame of me working at the dealer and going through Pittsburgh State, my manager at the time and the dealer at the time kind of modified the program and what I was doing on a normal day-to-day basis. So when I was there on intern, quote unquote, time for school, I may be, instead of out in the shop, I may be up on the service drive learning about right and service, or I may be with the manager filing warranty claims, or I may be back in the parts department learning a little bit about the parts. I kind of got a well-roundedness of all the different positions throughout my internship time. And I actually did that for, I think, 3 summers total on the dealer side of it, because, well, I could get paid for it. I didn't have to move, all that aspect. So, it turned out well, not to mention, in that 2008, 2009 timeframe, even trying to get a job, keep a job during that recession time period was difficult for a lot of people.
Yeah, it sure was. So who was your manager at the Chrysler dealership then?
Mike Troth.
Okay, the reason why I ask is because I worked at that dealership too back in, I don't know, 1989, 90, and Mike Troth hired me as my first dealership job, we'll call that, as a entry level technician. So that's fun. So
Yeah,
okay,
Mike's a good guy.
so you graduated in 2009. Tell me what happened next.
So when I graduated in 2009, like I said, 2009 was the worst time period
It was a
ever
hard
to try
year.
and get a
Yes, it
job.
was. Yep.
Any career opportunities or any companies that would come to Pitt State, love Pitt State students, took the time to interview everybody. But when it came down to the nuts and bolts, there was a lot of us that could not get hired to go to these companies just because of the simple fact they didn't have any openings. I did what anybody would do as a last ditch effort. I actually had one offer on the table to take a sales position for a heavy duty machinery company out here in Wichita. And so I took the only job that I had at that point in time. So I spent a short 30-day stint driving around, handing out flyers, trying to sell heavy duty machinery. And, short of getting a suntan on my one arm, hanging out the window and pulling my hair out because I wasn't doing anything hands-on or technical or anything like that, I very soon found out that career path wasn't for me. So then I had talked with Davis more, and I had always kept a good relationship with the guys out here through the automotive tech days and the career fairs and everything like that. And, I just got to that point in time where I thought, it's now or never. If I'm going to do something different, I need to do it now. So I called up Sean Hudspeth at the time and said, hey, I need a job. What do you got going on? I've got this. I know a little bit about this. I know enough that I can get myself in trouble. And turns out that they had just had a senior service advisor that was going to be retiring and that they were looking to fill that position. So right time and right place, I was able to get that position and come in and start training under him.
Okay, got it. Okay, so then they hired you as a service advisor at the Chrysler side of it. Is that right?
Yep, at the Chrysler store. Yep. So at that point in time, I was in charge of the Jeep team. I had a team of 3 technicians that only worked on everything that was Jeep. So
Oh, that sounds like fun.
I cut my teeth on learning anything and everything you could about the Grand Cherokees, the Liberties, all that fun stuff.
Got it. Excellent. Got it. Okay, and so how long did they keep you as a service advisor?
Well, I was a straight up advisor for 3.5 years. And at that point in time, I got the opportunity to assume some more management style roles. So they limited the amount of service that I wrote and gave me an assistant service manager type position to where I would start learning a little bit about the business and handling customer concerns and meeting with the factory reps and everything, all while still writing some service and taking care of customers. Because if we don't have customers, there's no reason to have a dealership or a business job or anything like that. So I juggled that for 2 years. And then at that point in time, I had an opportunity. A gentleman who had been the parts manager of the Chrysler store for 32 years woke up one day and decided that he wanted to do something totally different. So he woke up and decided he was going to go pursue another career, and the opportunity stood open for 2 or 3 weeks. They didn't really have any leads, and one day I woke up and said, you know what, why not?
At least give it a try. Yeah,
let's see what happens.
Try something new. Yeah,
I know enough about parts to be kind of dangerous. I know enough about the Chrysler side of the system, so I took over the parts department there at the Chrysler store. I ran the parts department there for about 4.5 years, which was a blast. Mm-hmm. Had a lot of fun, grew the business, did a lot of cool programs and opportunities, and really increased things for the dealership. And last October, had the opportunity to come out to my Chevrolet location and assumed the role over both service and parts because of my experience on the service drive as the assistant service manager, and then my backside knowledge of a parts department and its operations and runnings.
Wow. So how many technicians do you guys have in that Chevrolet store?
So I've got a total of 18 technicians, a couple express techs. I think between the two departments, service and parts, there's a total of 37 employees that I'm directly responsible for.
Wow, that's a big deal then. So,
It's
so you're up there now making the big money, man. You're big responsibility too.
big responsibility. Yep.
Yep.
Definitely.
So
There's
let's do
never a
that.
dull moment.
Yeah. So let's do this. So talk to me a little bit more about your service advisor role, because, that's a pretty common position that students from PSU, if they get the 4-year degree, may start at a dealership as. What was the hardest part about that job?
The hardest part for me was really just getting past that point of objection sometimes. Nobody wants to bring their car in to get worked on. It's kind of like going to the doctor.
Oh,
Nobody wants to go to the doctor because you're going to get bad news. You know that you're there for a reason, whether you're hurt or sick or whatever. If you take your car to the dealership, it's probably going to cost you money and it's going to cost you time. So flipping that customer around into an enjoyable experience and, telling them what may be wrong with their car and then working past those objections and everything like that was very intriguing to me. And I really enjoyed the part of the position as, it was something new every day. You had no idea what you were going to see, what was going to come in, how a brake light can cause something to go wrong with the AC, whatever it may be, some weird off the wall deal. I really enjoyed the difference of it and being that bridge communication between the technician who can talk a foreign language all day long about what's wrong with the car, me, the advisor, taking all that information, putting it into one big bucket and then spitting it out into something that the customer can understand on what exactly is going on with their car and why they have to spend hundreds of dollars to fix it.
Interesting. Were you doing a lot of stuff with cell phones and texting at that time, or was it pretty much still all phone calls? I just think now with technology the way it is, you could just video face your customer or something like that if you needed to. And I just didn't know if you were doing that back then or not.
No, most of what I did back then was still old school. Right around the time I started to switch over to the parts role, was the texting and the video inspections and the digital multi-point inspections and the email quotes and all that stuff was really coming about. But yeah, that came later. So most of it was face-to-face, in person, pick up the phone, maybe shooting an email every now and then. But for most of it, it was the non-technology based customer.
Yeah, but I bet your customer relation skills and your people skills, I'm going to call it, really is elevated because of that. You're dealing with 20, 30, 50 different people every day, depending upon how busy it is. And everyone has different personalities, and trying to communicate with them and trying to make people happy, obviously trying to fix the cars and solve problems and stuff. So pretty intriguing. So when you moved to parts, what was the big difference then in that life of parts versus on the service lane?
At that point in time, I went from the aspect of, just having 3 technicians that work directly under me to, I think I had a total of 9 employees at that point in time. And, you go from making sure that one customer, a couple customers are taken care of to taking care of all of them. I had a close to $500,000 inventory that I was directly responsible for, which, that's the bank vault. That's the money that is the dealerships. That's the cash. So, it was very important that I used my technical skills and everything like that to make sure that inventory kept clean and we procured the right parts and everything was clean and orderly. Like I said, what really made me tick about the whole automotive business is that it's something different every day. And you go into the parts department, you open up a whole different can of worms because, you don't know if the manufacturers are going to release an airbag recall, and you're going to have people, blowing up your phones for 6 months wanting to know how come they released a recall and they don't have any parts available.
Yeah.
Whatever it may be.
Yeah, I can imagine now with the COVID that I did hear a lot of dealerships were having problems getting parts, that they were having cars coming in, but they couldn't fix them because parts warehouses weren't shipping parts and they weren't making the parts. And so did you see
Well, and
a lot of that?
From the General Motors standpoint, it was really bad because General Motors was on strike in October and November. Yeah. And so we couldn't get parts then. And then right around the December, January, February time period, things just about got back to normal. And then the COVID stuff hit and kind of threw us right back into that, we can't necessarily get parts because places are shut down and nobody's there to pick parts. And yeah, it's been an adventure, that's for sure.
Okay. Well, tell me about your role then as the service and part director. Obviously, you're at a new store now, so you're at the Chevrolet store versus the Chrysler store. So how's that going?
Well, it was a pretty big learning curve. You go from, I think, a total of let's see, it would have been a total of 10 years, working with one manufacturer to jump into another. Mm-hmm. Deep down at the end of the day, all the processes and procedures are pretty much similar. It's just, learning all the little nitbits in between and trying to figure out, why the manufacturer does this or that. So that was a pretty big learning curve. But, it was a challenge that I was ready to step up to.
Okay. Probably doing a lot of people, you're working a lot with people now, your employees, and making sure your employees have what they need. And I guess coming from the training department, how is your technician training going with COVID?
Everything's kind of gone like meetings have gone. Everything's a digital training platform. They're doing live hands-on classes via Zoom to where they're showing about tearing an engine down or doing electrical diagnosis and stuff like that. Things are just now starting to get back to where, if they have a hybrid class that's available or something like that some technicians need to do, they're doing social distance training and, still starting to do a little bit of hands-on stuff. But for a while, it was a whole lot of web-based training.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yep. Okay. Well, let me go with maybe my last question for you then is that what advice can you give that high school student that is thinking about maybe a career in automotive technology, about your experiences and your successes?
Anything that your students think about now when they're looking for a career and stuff like that, one of the things that I would say is, look at the opportunity for job security. Look at what happened when most of the country shut down. Look at the places that were still open and available. We didn't shut down for one day worth of business in the automotive field because we had to keep the cars back up and running. It's going to be a long time before repair work's automated, before you can do a Zoom meeting to, replace the cylinder head on a car. They're always going to need people in this field for at least years to come on being able to fix cars, repair cars, being able to put hard parts on. So, the automotive industry is definitely a secure field as far as that goes, instead of being outsourced to something that maybe technology's taken over. And for the guys that are technical and hands-on, these vehicles are getting more complex every day. So in the very near future, the guys who understand those complex systems and understand how they work and what it takes to fix them, you're going to rank right up there with a doctor or an engineer on being able to fix these things. And you're going to have the opportunity to make a lot of money in order to, support your family and everything like that. So just keep an open mind. Look at every opportunity that may come about. You never know what might happen. You may have a love for service and then all of a sudden be thrown into a parts store and then, taken right out of the manufacturer that you grew up with and was born with and thrown a different curveball. Just look at each opportunity and every opportunity that you have and exhaust all options. The newer generation of kids, what they really need to focus and think about is you need to make sure that once you get into a career, you get into a position, you get a job somewhere, whether it's automotive or whatever it may be, just make sure that you dedicate enough time to that position before you decide that, hey, maybe I want to go do something different. Maybe you make sure that, you don't do a whole bunch of job jumping. Do your research ahead of time. Make sure that, what you're doing, you could see yourself being in the future. Because, as a manager who hires employees for 2 different departments, I see a lot of resumes and interview a lot of kids that have held, 12 positions in the last 2 years at 12 different companies. So, just put the effort forth, make sure that you look at any opportunity, and there is a plethora of different opportunities within the automotive or technical field that you can get your hands dirty.
Great, man. Awesome advice, Tim, man. That is great. Thanks a lot. We appreciate it, man. I just love having my my former students, being successful, doing great things, and rising up, through the ranks like you're doing. So I wanted to thank you very much for your time. Obviously, you're very busy, with the family and of course being the actual director at the dealership.
Sure.
But again, thank you very much. And folks, if you're looking for more automotive type information about careers in the automotive industry, you can follow my Professor Pentane YouTube channel. Look for the Gorillas in the Mist of the Automotive Industry channel. There's probably at least a dozen to 15 different interviews from past PSU alumni on all walks of life in the automotive industry. Thank you very much, and you have a good evening.
Thank you, Scott.